Welcome back. Well, Audie was here with me a moment ago, but he decided it was simply too hot to be cuddled and he needs to go run off somewhere. Also, I let him out for a while this afternoon. He only stayed out for about 20 minutes. It was just so hot. He came back in and he's very angry with me for making it hot out. That cat gives me so much credit. It really is. It's like he thinks I run the universe. So if he comes in and it's been too hot out, it's my fault, and he needs me to do something about it. So right now he's in the other room, and he is lying on his back with his paws up so that the fan can just sort of swish a nice little breeze on his belly. So no cat for us today. I had something completely different planned today, but then I got a gift from one of our viewers, so that has changed everything that's going on. Today, we are going to take a look at framing pictures when we come back. So, this is what I got. Now, I'm going to show you a picture of this so you can actually see. Here we go. Yes, one of our viewers had done this beautiful picture of the schoolhouse. I couldn't stop crying when I first got that. I thought, oh my goodness, how am I ever going to do a video with this? Because you know I've got to do a video about this, but how am I ever going to keep from crying? That's just so beautiful. So I am just, I can't put it down. My schoolhouse, oh wait, that's my cat in front of my schoolhouse. This is just so incredible. So, this is Kiley Secrest, and I'm going to put all of the information on Kiley's Etsy shop in the video notes under this video, and I'm going to put it up as a pinned comment too, because sometimes people have a hard time finding things in the video notes. Because you've got to go there. This is just one of many, many, many pieces of beautiful artwork. So you've got to check out that Etsy shop. It's just staggering. So I am just thrilled beyond words. And now we're going to get to frame this. So framing, let me start off with, artists should never frame their own work. Whenever I have gotten a piece of original art that has been framed by the artist, the first thing I have always done is gotten rid of the artist's frame. I think it is a mutually exclusive skill set. Either you can create the art or you can show the art off properly, but apparently you can't do both. Because I'm pretty darn good at framing, but believe me, you do not want to see anything I've drawn. And I've known so many artists, and it's just, they do such beautiful work, and it's like, what made you think that a green and gold modeled mat would look good on that picture? Honestly, some of my favorite pictures have green and gold past tense, green and gold modeled mats. Trust me, first thing I did was took them out and got them some nice white mats, which is what they needed. I don't even know. I have to be honest with you, I have no idea what would look good in a green and gold modeled mat. When you are framing a picture, there are a number of things you need to keep in mind. Some of them are purely practical and others are aesthetic. Purely practical. If you have a piece like this, and you're looking at something that is a watercolor or a pastel, a charcoal, anything other than oil on canvas, a piece like this is going to go under glass or plexiglass. The first thing you need to do before you do anything else about framing is choose a mat, because you must do something to keep the artwork away from the glass or the plexiglass. Now, a mat is just a piece of, I'm trying to think, it can be as minimal as a piece of heavy paper. I've seen like that much of mats, just a piece of nice heavy paper. So it can be extremely thin. Most mats that you buy commercially are two pieces of paper with a tiny sliver of foam core in between them, and the mat is cut at a bevel so that it's brought down with a little bit of an angle coming down as it meets the picture. That's most standard mats. That is not always the best way to go. Sometimes the idea of using just that thin piece of paper is really, it can be a very creative way to mat. But what we are doing with this piece is we're going with a standard mat. Purely practical consideration. We need airspace between the surface of the painting and the glass, which is either going to be no glare glass or plexiglass, but we need that breathing room. Because if you slam the pastels or charcoals or watercolors or whatever up against the glass or plexiglass, you have a possibility of damaging your painting. The surface colors might transfer over to the glass. If that happens, of course, you're going to get a mess on your glass, but also pieces of your painting are going to be stuck on the glass. You don't want that. So you really need to have that little bit of breathing room. Now, I want to show you a different kind of matting. This is also, interestingly enough, an architectural piece I have. It's a watercolor, and this is a building from downtown Carlisle. So let me show you. Now you notice what that artist did. When she created her piece, she tore the paper, so that interesting sort of sculpted edge of the paper is because she tore the watercolor paper and then mounted it on a mat, if you will, that's really backing the painting. So there are different ways you can do this. Now, in the case of that particular piece, and it's hanging over on the wall, what I had to do, because of the way she did that, was I had a mat that is not showing. I had a mat cut that is completely hidden behind the frame. I think it's about this thick. It's just a little spacer to keep the painting away from the glass. In this case, the matting is part of the art. Was it a good idea? Well, you know what I think about artists framing their own work. I did, in fact, change the frame on that painting because I changed the frame on that painting. I found something a little more suitable. But that is an example of a mat that is, in fact, just a piece of paper. You can do that in the opposite way. In this case, the artist tore the painting itself to lay it on top of the mat. You can tear the mat, and or they call it deckling when you have these interestingly torn edges. You can tear the mat and create the same sort of look in reverse. And that's something we might want to experiment with sometime. But let's take a look at another piece. I've shown you this piece before. This is my 1970s painting. Okay, so as you saw from that painting, that is one of those, Bill Alexander, Bob Ross, happy little brush. Here's our little woodsy whatever. I got that at an antique store for like $3, and it had a plain, thin, unfinished wood frame on it. Did nothing for the painting, did nothing for the frame. It was one of those paintings, or frames rather, that you used to be able to buy them at hardware stores. You just go out and say, here's my frame, you stick your painting in it, and people just say, oh, that's lovely. So I went looking for a 70s frame. And yes, that black inset area is velvet. It's the 1970s. It's a happy little painting of happy little trees. You gotta know it needed some black velvet because it's 70s. And I wanted to keep the 70s flavor. Well, actually, it didn't have 70s flavor. I wanted to give it the 70s flavor it deserved. And because the rest of the frame in that sort of coppery gold tone really it just went so well with the colors in the painting. I just, well, this is what we're doing. The painting and the frame were meant to go together. So sometimes you get lucky. By the way, the frame, I think, was $5. I think I paid more for the frame than I paid for the painting. So every now and then, oh, and let me show you another, because I've got another happy little Bill Alexander, Bob Ross kind of, what is it they call that? Magic of oil painting. It was a PBS series that was on television. Lord, had to be at least 10, 15 years. So let me show you another one that I have. Now that one is a little winter scene. Doesn't have a mat. It just has this really wildly ornate frame. Now that really wildly ornate frame is not gesso on wood or anything like that. It's actually a plastic frame that is molded plastic. It was a Homeco, which I believe morphed into Home Interiors. Very, very inexpensive molded plastic frame from the 1960s that I don't remember. I think it had ballerinas in it. 1960s, what can I say? Just some trashy little picture that I took out and repainted the frame and used it for my happy little winter scene. Very different. It's a different way to frame the piece. I took advantage of the fact that that little winter scene was, the colors are very similar tones, white into blue. It's just very pale, and I let the frame sort of be exuberant, and the frame shows the painting off well. So there are many ways you can do it. You can match the frame to the painting, as I did with the 1970s piece. You can come up with something completely different, as I did with the other piece. I'm pointing, by the way, to where they are. I'm looking at them here. The piece behind me was framed in the late 1970s, early 1980s. That is a pastel of Boston Public Gardens, the swan boats. And I don't like the frame anymore. The frame is looking dated to my eye, and I think I can do a better job. So eventually I'm going to reframe that, but not today. So let's take a look at something else, because this is yet another way to create a good match between the art and the frame. And this is the steampunk hot air balloons. As you can see, I had two sets of steampunk hot air balloon pictures, two larger ones and three smaller ones. And if truth be told, only two of the smaller ones were a set. They were a pair just as the larger ones were, but I went off, got another piece. It wasn't a hot air balloon, but it had a similar frame, threw in a hot air balloon picture so that I could have that third hot air balloon. They were designed to be hung on decorative hooks, and they have those little loops on the top, and they're decorative, the little decorative loops on the top, designed to hang on decorative hooks, so that the way that you put the picture on the wall is very visible. That was a thing in the 50s. It really was. They, for some reason, decided they wanted to show off the picture hanging hardware. I liked that because, again, since they are my steampunk hot air balloons, showing how they go together and hang on the wall is inherently steampunk. But those were different pieces. In fact, three different sets of frames, not just two, combined together because they have similar features in that the frames are wood and the subjects are all hot air balloons, and it will work together. Those are things you need to keep in mind, because your frame either needs to match your painting in style, in tone, in color, or contrast in a way that sets off your piece. So what are we doing with this? Well, when I first took a look at this, the first thing that hit me, and I know I'm holding it a little off center, but the first thing was I noticed how the schoolhouse is framed in greenery. And if you look, it's like green all around, creating its own little green frame around the building. I thought, that's great. But that absolutely tells me the one color we're not going to be able to use. We're not going to go with green or anything that even smacks of green. And there are a lot of shades of gold that have sort of an undertone of green. Many of them have an undertone of red too, and I thought, maybe we can give an undertone of red a try. So let me show you what that would look like. Not bad, not great, not where we're going with this. I decided I just didn't like that, in part because the company that I use for my picture frames allows you to upload your picture, what you're going to frame, and then add your matte and frame. And a great many of their customers had uploaded pictures that you could see. You know, you just go on their site and see what their customers have uploaded, examples of their own artwork in that frame. Well, seeing that frame in a variety of different settings with a variety of different artwork was the one thing that made me say no. I don't think, I mean, it might look good in their catalog, But seeing it with real people's real art, no. So the next thing I looked at, which as you can see, and let's see if we can get this in here. There we go. The next thing that you can see is all of the white. And we've got white on the roof. Well, it's actually silver with the shutters, we've got the trim, all white. And I thought, maybe we'll go in a different direction. And we'll go over to a silver frame. So let's take a look. I'm going to show you the two silver frames. It's the same frame, but with two different mats. Now, as you can see, both of those mats are white, but I'm going with the one that has a little more of a gray cast to it, I think. I'm going to watch it for another day or two and make sure I'm sure. Because they're both called antique white, but one of them sort of has a yellowish tinge, the other has a bit of a grayish tinge. The gray one is the one that we're going to go with. I think that one actually suits the painting better and shows it off, because the point is, I want to show the painting off. I'm not out to show the frame off. The frame is dull. I'm not out to show the mat off. The mat exists to keep the picture away from the glass. I want to show the picture off. That's where I want people's eyes to travel when they see that. I want them to say, picture, and just gradually home in on the schoolhouse. And I believe that frame and mat is going to do it. So, how do we get from here to there? And from here is babbling, got a few pictures, have an idea in my head. Well, the company I'm using is Graphic Dimensions. I've been using them for many, many years, back into the 70s, when you got a hard copy catalog, you picked your frames out of the catalog, and then you called them up and placed your order over the phone, sent them a check, they sent you a frame. That's what we used to do before the internet, children. Imagine how tough our lives were. So what I'm going to do now is, I have the frame I want. I'm going to call them. I'm going to give them all of the information. I'm not going to do it online, because they have some strange little online system that works for people who don't know how to frame a painting. In other words, they don't know to make an allowance for the overlap on the mat, or the amount of mat that's going to be hidden by the border of the frame, etc. I do. As a consequence, and this is one time when knowing too much is really, this is not the only time I've ever found myself in a situation where knowing too much was a bad thing. In this case, knowing too much is a bad thing, because they want the information differently. They don't want to know the exact dimensions of the interior of the frame, which is what I'm going to give them, because I know what that's going to be. They have their own weird little way of doing this, so I need to talk to them, get them to pull out a ruler and measure and read it back to me, and then we'll get something we can work with. But it's really a question of their system has changed over the years. And over the years, I got very used to their old system, and I can't follow the new one. And as a consequence, my measurements will come up skewed, and everything will be about 1/4 of an inch off. Really, I've done this before. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to order the mat from them. When I do that, I'm going to tell them the exact mat opening, and that is going to be the size of this picture minus the amount I want covered by the edge of the mat, which is probably going to be somewhere between 1/8 and 1/4 of an inch all the way around. Now, when I do that, this 1/8 inch, you have to add it twice because it's all the way around. So if this is 8 by 10, by the way, it's not. It's 8 by 10. You can't say, well, it's going to be 1/4 of an inch smaller, so it's going to be 9 3/4 by 7 3/4. No, you got to add that twice because it's 1/4 of an inch on both long sides, both short sides. However, when I decide how wide the mat's going to be, how much mat I want showing, and I want 2.5 inches. That's usually my standard. That's what I like. Most people tend to go with 2 inches. I prefer 2.5, especially if I'm using a wider frame. And I am using a wider frame on this one, as you saw. So 5 inches, I've got to add that in. Then I'm going to come up with the interior of my frame. That's going to be the dimensions of my picture minus that overlap, which will be 1/4 or 1/8 of an inch, I haven't decided yet, plus the 5 inches all the way around, 2.5 inches on each of the 4 sides. That is the opening of the frame where the mat is going to lie. No, mats are grammatical mistake. Humans lie, objects lay. Where the mat will lay within the opening of the frame. So I'm not ordering my glass from them. I'll get my glass from a glass company right here where I live. I'll have more choices. The graphic dimensions, they are, by the way, pictureframes.com. You're going to be happier going to pictureframes.com than trying to figure out graphic dimensions because they've got one of those weird cutesy spellings. This goes back to the 1970s when weird cutesy spellings were a thing, and it's not G-R-A-P-H-I-C, it's like G-R-A-P-H-I-K. I don't know for sure, but it's, it's a non-standard spelling. But they now call themselves pictureframes.com. They only have one type of glass or glass-like substance available, and that's acrylic. I'm going to get my glass at my local glass shop. I will be able to get what I want, which is glass, not acrylic. I want no glare glass specifically. And there are a couple of reasons for that, not the least of which is glass will not scratch. Acrylic gets easily scratched over time. Even if it's just up on a wall and nobody's like walking on it or scratching their nails on it, acrylic, my experience is it doesn't hold up well. So I want real glass. And I will get the glass, the frame, the mat, and we're going to put it together. We'll just do that as a Sunday project one of these days once we get everything together. Meantime, what I would like all of you to consider is, do you have art that needs to be reframed? What are the considerations you might want to be looking at with the art? Do you have pieces that are interesting, valuable, beautiful? You're going to want to show them off. Do you have pieces that are just relatively ordinary? And you can do what I did for that 70s piece, which is, go to a junk shop, pick up a nice $3 frame. There's a big difference between framing an inexpensive piece of art I got because the 70s kitschiness appealed to me, and a piece like this, which is going to be with me until I am very, very dead. You're going to frame them differently. So we will follow up on this when we have our frame, our mat, in our glass. All right. Meantime, have a great day. I will see you all tomorrow. Check out Kiley's Etsy shop. This is, believe me, it's better than watching television, just going through these gorgeous pictures. I'll see you all tomorrow. Have a great day.